It has been 1 year of Vaughnerable. It is Vaughnerable's birthday. Yay! Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Vaughnerable. I am your host, Chelsea Vaughn, and today is a very special day. I know we just celebrated 50 episodes, but we're not going to celebrate everything. It has been 1 year of Vaughnerable. It is Vaughnerable's birthday. Yay! 1 year. I launched the podcast on November 14th last year, and today's November 13th. So it has been a whole year, and I'm really proud of myself. I'm really proud of us. We're doing this together. You guys are here, my listeners. I have so many new people from when I started this in my spare bedroom in my Brooklyn apartment that I no longer live in last year. So I feel like a lot has changed in a year. And all I want for my birthday, for my Vaughnerable birthday, is for you guys to rate this podcast on Spotify and Apple, give me 5 stars, and to subscribe on YouTube. We just hit 2,000 followers on YouTube, and we're going to keep that party going. I feel like hitting 1,000 was a really big deal, and that was like one of the things on my list that was one of my goals for the podcast this year. But I think everyone says on YouTube the first 1,000 is the hardest. So now we're just going to keep snowballing that. And then before you know it, I'm going to have that 100,000 plaque in my room. But please subscribe, please rate, please send the show to your friends. If you've ever listened to an episode and thought, oh my God, my bestie's going through a breakup, she could learn something from this. Or, oh my God, my bestie likes to f all of her guy friends, she should benefit from this. Send the episodes. There's 52 of them now, or 53, I think. So yeah, that's where we're at. I feel like I had a lot of expectations going into starting a podcast. I mean, I have a lot of expectations about everything in my life. I try really hard not to do that. I'm working on it. It's something I'm working on. But like, I feel like expectations are pretty normal and regular to have about things. How can you start a brand new project in your life and not have expectations around it? Like, I would love to be that person that's like, I don't have any expectations. It's going to be what it's going to be. Like, that's not me. I'm a Virgo. You guys know this. So I think I've met and not met some of the expectations that I had in my head. I never expected to fail. So I think that just continuing to do this consistently for this many weeks in a row is an amazing success that I'm like patting myself on the back for, because a lot of people can't do that. There's some statistic out there, I can't remember where it's from or whatever, but it's like most podcasts don't make it past, I think it's 10 episodes. So to be sitting here at over 50, I'm very proud of that. And to make it to the 1 year mark is amazing. And I am all about celebrating all the wins. So we're definitely going to continue to do that. Another thing that I had told you guys before that was on my little vision board that I put on my phone background was hitting 100,000 downloads this year. So I wanted, like, from 2023, I made this goal at the beginning of the year. So yeah, so from January until the end of the year, I wanted to hit 100K. And I'm very close to that, if not already hitting that by the time this episode airs. So that is something that I'm like, I love a tangible goal. And I feel like it's kind of hard to make tangible goals in this space that I'm in. Like, I don't really even know what to call myself when people ask what I do for a living. And so I feel like it's nice to have like a goal that was on my vision board, sitting there as my screen, like phone screen background, and be able to see the number be like 100K. So that is a really amazing goal that I'm very proud of with the pod. I'm just like, a lot of people love to ask me like what my favorite episode was or what my favorite guest has been. That's a really hard one for me to answer, just because I feel like they're all so different. Like, my plan when I launched this podcast and I was talking to my manager and I was like shopping around for podcast networks and stuff was, I don't know if I necessarily even framed it as like a relationships and dating podcast, or I feel like I still don't have my little elevator pitch properly prepared when people are like, oh, you have a podcast? What is it about? I just word vomit a different sentence like every time, depending on who the person is. But originally I was like, oh, it's going to be a safe space where I can feel comfortable being vulnerable and my guests can feel comfortable being vulnerable and we could talk about topics that I find interesting. And I mean, that is what it's been. I don't know if I need to maybe hone that in or like specify a little more. Just I only say that not because I haven't been having a good time or like I don't like my episodes, but I think it's just not as focused as maybe it needs to be to continue to grow in the direction that I want it to grow. And I think part of this is me being super hard on myself. Because like I just named off all of my things that I'm proud of and successes, great. Can acknowledge that. But I also think there's a long way to go. And I think podcasting isn't like it's a long game. Like people, and I think that's why when people start and realize like how much work goes into it, how consistent you have to be, and how long it's going to take to get where you want to get. That's why people quit after 10 episodes. And now it's been a year and I still feel like I feel like I'm successful, but I don't feel like I'm as successful as I want to be with it yet. I think I can be better. I think I can be a better host. I think I could be a better like journalist. I think I could be better when I'm interviewing guests. I think I could be better at my solo episodes. I think I will always think that about myself for anything that I do, to be honest. That's just kind of like my personality vibe. I always strive to be better and a better version. But I feel like I've gotten better at acknowledging what I am good at too. So yeah, I definitely want the podcast to have more reach. Like I want it to have more listeners. I want it to go more viral. Like I want people to see it. I want people to find it. I want people to binge all the episodes. And people do message me and say like, oh my God, I found you from so-and-so. And now I've just like watched all the episodes from like all of them, like all 40 of them or all 50 of them. And I do it when I'm cleaning my apartment or I do it when I'm driving to work. And I love that. Like that really brings me joy and makes me feel like, okay, I'm not just shouting into the void. Like people actually are listening to this and finding it helpful. But what I would love going forward is if you guys talk to me more, like message me and tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what guests you think would be good. Like if you see somebody on TikTok or if you see somebody that you follow and you're like, damn, this would be a good guest for Chelsea to have on, like send it to me or message me topics that you think aren't talked about enough or you want to be covered. Like I've tried to be, obviously there's a lot of podcasts out there. And I don't really just want to be like sitting here talking to talk. Obviously you guys know I want you to take something away from the episodes and the guests that I have, even if it's just like, oh, that's relatable or like, oh, I feel the same way or whatever. So I've tried to talk about topics that one, I find personally interesting, but also I think would be helpful in some way and contributing something to the world of podcasts. But there's no limit. The limit does not exist for the amount of topics that can be talked about on podcasts. And a lot of them are so nuanced that I talk about things for, 30, 45 minutes at a time. And I don't even go as deep into some parts of some topics as I definitely could. Yeah, but I think I'm just like sometimes torn between what kind of podcast I want this to be or what kind of host that I want to be. Because I feel like I feed a lot off of people's energies. And so depending on what guest I have, that's kind of like how the conversation in the episode goes. And sometimes, like, I feel like when Cash comes on, it's purely a podcast for entertainment. And that's valuable. Like, people listen to podcasts for entertainment. I listen to podcasts for entertainment. Like, I just want to be entertained on a flight, or I just want to laugh because I'm in a bad mood or whatever. And I love those kind of episodes. And then there's other episodes where I'm talking to my fertility doctor about egg freezing because a lot of people don't have access to like fertility doctor and can't get that kind of information. And I'm just trying to like share information because I also listen to podcasts like that where they have on experts as guests and the experts tell you things and you learn things. But I don't know if those podcasts aren't necessarily as interesting or entertaining. I don't know. I just feel like I go back and forth a lot with all of these different thoughts, and I kind of would rather just pick a lane and stay in it, like commit to a lane and stay there. And then if it doesn't work, like commit to another one. I don't know. But hopefully you guys will stick around for the ride. I'm literally figuring it out as I go. As you know, I just started this because I felt like it, and now it's kind of just gone from there. I'm very grateful to have so many friends that are in the industry or influencers or whatever that I know that I could invite so many guests on. I wonder how many guests I've had on. It's been like 53 episodes. I feel like I've had probably around 35 maybe. Like there's been a lot of people on this couch. And I love that because in my mind, I never wanted to start a podcast and it just be about me. Not that I don't think I'm interesting enough to like talk about things, I guess, but I don't think I would have been able to do this many episodes if I was just by myself. I struggle enough as it is with the solo episodes, trying to figure out what to talk about. But I think my favorite part of being in this industry in general, like I would say this about modeling too, or fashion, is just the collaborative aspect of it all. Because I am not naive enough to think that I know everything and am everything and can be everything to everyone. Like I don't want to do that. I want to bring people on that have different experiences than me. And we can share and we can talk and we can debate over what we think is the right answer. Like, I just think that's so much more interesting than me sitting here talking about, I don't know, anything. Yeah. And now I think next year, I don't know, I have a lot of goals. In my mind, I would like the podcast to make it to 2 years. That is a short-term goal. Like, obviously, I have a hard time thinking about things as infinite/forever. So like in my mind, it's much easier for me to break it into small chunks and be like, okay, we made it to 1 year. I'd like to make it to 2 years, versus being like, I'm going to have this podcast forever, because realistically, probably not. I don't know where it's going, which is kind of the fun part. And I think, like I just said, I've got a lot of expectations on myself as far as the success and how I measure success for the pod. And I do want those things, but at the end of the day, I genuinely enjoy doing this without any like necessary like accolades. Like I haven't had any like podcast, like I'm not on top lists. I'm not like hitting crazy numbers. I'm not like breaking records or anything. And I think that a lot of my previous jobs, I guess, like I measured success a lot by what other people saw, like what am I trying to say? The like rewards. Like if I was signed by a reputable, well-known agency for modeling, or was on a billboard, or was in Vogue, then these are like little mile markers that I can be like, okay, you add all those things up and I'm a successful model. And for the podcast, like, sure, yeah, I would love things like that, but I still enjoy it enough to continue it when I'm not getting any of those things. So I feel like that's a real testament to how much like I just enjoyed doing the podcast. And because I don't have that and I still like doing it, I feel like I'm on the right track to something. Also, it's just like it's a passion project at this point, which I think I needed to have in my life where I was, because I'm not I'm not super passionate about being an influencer. I know, shocking. But it's just like I was at one point very passionate about being a model, and all of my goals and aspirations and career were tied up in that. And I feel like I reached a point and a peak kind of where, and maybe it was just a certain age where I'm just like, I don't get the same thrill out of that anymore. Like it doesn't bring me as much joy, happiness, whatever. And so I feel like I needed to find something else that was more of like me doing something aligned with my purpose. And this is like kind of silly, but I feel like anytime I do like a test of any kind, like have you like a career test or like a talk to a psychic or whatever, a life coach, like people always say that my purpose is to like truly embrace who I am and say what I need to say and allow that to like be put into the world because other people need to hear what I have to say in order to like help them. Like it's always like you need to be in a field where you're helping people. Anytime I do anything like that, it's like you're supposed to help people on a larger scale. And I feel like that has sat with me in a way where I'm just like, I feel like all of this, like, yeah, okay, I started out going on a reality show that's stupid or whatever. But I feel like it's all leading me to something that I don't know what it necessarily is yet. And I feel like the podcast is part of the journey. I've talked about dream guests that I want to have on the podcast before. Haven't necessarily had any of them yet. I feel like for next year, year 2, that is definitely a tangible goal that I can throw out there. I have mentioned Cammie Crawford. A lot of people don't know who she is, but to me, she's somebody that inspired me to start this podcast. And so she is like a goal for me that I want to have on the pod. But if I'm dreaming and thinking bigger, like actual celebrities, I just don't compare myself necessarily to people that have podcasts where actual celebrities come on. Like I'm not sitting here being like, I have a podcast. Jay Shetty has a podcast. Mel Robbins has a podcast. We are the same. Like, we're not the same. But I feel like even the podcast, like, Call Her Daddy. Like, this is a random girl. Like, Alex Cooper is a random girl. And she just started talking into a mic. And I'm not saying she doesn't have any skills or expertise or whatever. Like, she's killing it. But she has like legit celebrities on this podcast now. It's like that is one of the podcasts that people, actual celebrities will be like, okay, I can go on that. And I don't even know if I aspire to be at like that level, but I do aspire to have people that I admire and look up to on the podcast. So I feel like one of my idols in life in general is Issa Rae. And I think she's a creative genius. I think that she is so relatable and so smart. And obviously I love Insecure. And I just love her. And I've never met her, obviously. But I feel like if I did meet her, I would be obsessed with her. And I would love to have her on the podcast. I feel like she could share so much wisdom and knowledge. And she would just be cool and normal. I think she's only like, I don't know, 5 years older than me. But she's been doing this whole thing for a very long time. She has her own media company now. She just started her own Prosecco line. So yeah, I love her. I would love to have Issa Rae on. And who else? I mean, I was just talking about Sarah Jessica Parker and Hilary Duff. Like these are just actresses in shows that I grew up with and that I just love and I'm obsessed with. So I feel like people like that are dream guests, but it's almost like obviously I don't know Issa Rae either, but I don't know, like the reason I admire Issa Rae is because of who I think she is and what she does as a person. Whereas the reason I admire Sarah Jessica Parker and Hilary Duff is because of like their acting work. And I'm just obsessed with the things that they've been in. So like, I don't really know anything about Sarah Jessica Parker as a person. or Hillary Duff, but they both seem pretty cool. Like, would not turn either one of them down. If you guys are listening, feel free to come on the couch. You know what else I want? I really want my advice segment back. Like, I used to be very diligent in the beginning about Shell It Like It Is. And I think I just stopped asking people to ask me for advice. But in the beginning, I really wanted, and I still want this, people to call in some sort of a way. I don't know how to do this. I think I could set up like a voicemail or something. But I want people to call in and tell me their problems. And then I can just play the voice on the podcast and then give advice. That's really what I want. I need to actually like look into that and try to do that. Or I could just give you guys my email address and then you could email me and then I could read those on the pod. So I really love giving advice. I think I'm great at it. Great at giving, not great at taking my own advice. But I want to do that more because I feel like, I don't know, I like doing that and I feel like I'm helping people. So if you guys need advice, I mean, my email is in my bio, technically, in my Instagram, but you could also DM me. I read all the DMs. I don't know if people actually think I do that, but I actually do read all of my DMs. So you could message me, but sometimes I feel like it's too much for a message, or when I ask it on my story, that little question box, you can only write like 3 sentences. So it's not enough. I don't know if you can send voice notes on Instagram if you're not following the person. Because like sometimes me and my friends will send voice notes if it's like too much to say. But I don't think you can send someone a voice note if you just go into their message requests. But try it. Send me a voice note. And then I'll start giving more advice in 2024 in my second year of the pod. But that is really it, guys. Thank you for being here, as always. Thanks for listening for a year. I had somebody message me the other day saying, like, I've been there since day one. And I'm like, I love seeing how far you've come. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys being here. And I will see you next episode.